Welcome back to the Fit Focus Forum, where we take the complexity out of fitness and put the focus back on action. So we have high-achieving professionals, the ones juggling 50-hour work weeks, constant travel, and maybe a little bit of low-key burnout, the precise strategies they need to own their fitness without sacrificing their careers or their sanity. Now, tonight we're talking about something that almost nobody thinks about until something breaks: connective tissue. Not muscles, not fat loss, not calories. The stuff that actually holds your body together. Because here's the reality. Most of the guys I work with don't get held back by lack of effort. They get held back by pain. The elbows that won't cooperate, the knees that feel off, the shoulders that get cranky the second pressing volume goes up. And the frustrating part is they're doing everything right. They're showing up, they're training consistently, they're pushing themselves, but their body doesn't feel like it's keeping up. So what do? They stretch more. They foam roll. They take a few days off. Maybe they switch exercises. And then a few weeks later, same fucking issue. Different body part. So what's actually going on? Let's start with the most important truth. Your muscles are not the limiting factor. Your connective tissue is. Connective tissue includes your tendons, your ligaments, and your fascia. Your muscles, they create force. Your connective tissue transfers that force. And if the transfer system is weak, slow to adapt, or not conditioned properly, that's when you're really going to feel it. That's where instability comes from. That's where nagging injuries come from. And that's where the something just doesn't feel right feeling comes from. Now here's the problem. Muscles, they adapt fast. Connective tissue, it adapts slowly. This is one of the biggest mismatches in the human body. Now, you can build muscle and strength relatively quickly, over weeks, sometimes even days if you're talking neurologically, but connective tissue, that takes months. So, what happens? You feel stronger, you lift heavier, you push harder, but your tendons and your ligaments haven't caught up yet, and that's the gap. And the gap is where the injuries live. So, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt strong but not stable? Like you can move the weight, but something feels sketchy in your joints? That is not a muscle problem. That is a connective tissue problem. And most people ignore it. They treat symptoms instead of fixing the system. So let's shift the conversation. Instead of asking, how do I recover from pain? We want to start asking, how do I build a body that doesn't break down in the first place? And that's what resilience is. And resilience, guess what? That is trainable. So what actually strengthens connective tissue? It is not random. It's not just lifting weights. There are specific inputs that your body responds to. We're talking controlled load, time under tension, consistency, and most importantly, recovery. But here's where it gets interesting. Connective tissue does not respond well to sloppy reps and ego lifting. It really responds to precision. So let's talk about something that most people rush through: the eccentric movement. This is the lowering phase of the lift. This is one of the most powerful tools you have for tendon strength. When you slow down the eccentric, you increase mechanical tension in the connective tissue. That's what signals adaptation. That's what makes tendons thicker, stronger, and more resilient. So instead of dropping into a squat, you control your way down. Instead of letting the weights fall on a press, you own the lowering phase, right? 3 seconds down, very intentional. This is how you build durability. Now, let's layer in something called isometrics. This is where you hold positions under tension. We're talking at the bottom of a squat, maybe the midpoint of a push-up, a split squat hold, plank variations. This builds stability in your joints. And stability is what allows you to produce force safely. I mean, Bella's getting bored at this point. Without it, everything feels shaky. And when things feel shaky, your body starts protecting itself. That's when you feel tightness, that's when you feel restriction, and that's when your body says, we are not going there. Now here's another big mistake. People only train their strongest range. They avoid the positions where they feel weak. This is a natural human thing to do, but injuries don't happen in your strongest range. They happen in your weakest, most uncontrolled positions. So the question here is, what do? We train there. We do this on purpose. Slow, controlled, lighter loads. That's how you expand your usable strength. I want to do a quick check-in. So think about your body right now. Where does something feel off? Not injured, just, not right. That's your starting point. That's where your connective tissue needs better input. So now let's talk about frequency, because this is where a lot of people sabotage themselves. They go too hard, too infrequently. They destroy a muscle group once a week. That's that hard leg day that you can't walk after. Then they leave it alone. Connective tissue does not like that. It thrives on consistent exposure, moderate stimulus, repeated over time. So instead of one brutal leg day, we distribute volume. Instead of maxing out constantly, we cycle the intensity. That's how you build a body that lasts. Now, let's talk about recovery, because this matters more for connective tissue than it does for muscle. Your tendons don't get as much blood flow. They recover much slower, which means your lifestyle shows up here fast. If you're under eating, your joints feel it. If you're under sleeping, your joints feel it. And if you're constantly stressed, like this guy right here, your joints feel it. So if something always feels irritated, we don't just look at your program, we zoom out and we look at the whole picture. So let's bring this into real life. If I were adjusting your program starting tomorrow, here's what changes. Your reps, they slow down. We add controlled eccentrics. We introduce isometric holds. We train full ranges, not shortcuts. We stop chasing exhaustion and we start chasing control, because control is what builds resilience. And here's the shift I want to leave you with. You're not just training to look good, you're training to hold up. Because looking good for a short window, honestly, that's easy. But feeling strong, stable, and pain-free year after year, that requires a different level of intention. That requires understanding the system that most people ignore. So, before we wrap up, I want you to think about this. Where in your body have you been compensating instead of improving? Because once you fix that, everything else starts to move better. Now, if you want help building a program that not only gets you lean, but actually builds a body that you can handle in your lifestyle, your travel, your stress, and your training long-term, that's exactly what we do inside the Modified Macro Method. So comment my turn if you're watching this on YouTube, or grab the Skinny Fat Blueprint in the link. We'll help you build a body that performs just as good as it looks. So thanks for joining the Fit Focus Forum, and remember, together we're getting better every day.